This program was first broadcast on Canterbury's access media station, Plains FM, and was made with the assistance of New Zealand On Air.
Hello and welcome to Breaking Ground, a podcast about machinery and people in our industries throughout New Zealand. Both of your hosts work for TerraCat, New Zealand's Caterpillar machinery dealer. I'm Anne-Marie Robinson.
And I'm Richard Clark. In this podcast, we hear stories from a wide range of people in our industry, and today we're pleased to introduce Ron Thomassen. Ron is the director of Thomassen Logging, based out of Taupo, and has been involved in the forestry industry since the 1980s. He established Thomassen Logging in 2003 and has grown the business to be one of the largest forestry contractors in the country. It's great to have him with us today. Welcome, Ron.
Yeah, thanks, Richard and Anne-Marie, for inviting me along here today.
So, Ron, take us back, I suppose, to where it all started in terms of the early years for you and where your interest in the bush came from.
My life in the bush started off, I'm a Pataru born and raised person. My early years were watching an uncle cut short pulp and sort of interested me in being part of that. So, yeah, he was working in the Kinleith Forest back in those days, New Zealand Forest Products, and cut a old Harvey. So we were cutting short pulp back in those days, which was cutting it to 8-foot lengths and stacking it and extracting it with skidders. And when that all finished up, we moved to the long pulp gangs, which were basically thinning the forest out. And after that, moved into the clearfell. Yeah, so those were the early days, my early days.
And who were some of those guys that they were working with back then?
As in contractors, there was a big pool of contractors then. It was in the early days before Ribbonwood, Kevin Goodman. He was the main short pulp contractor. And then there are a number of the more well-known people, the Sintons and Olsons and Marshalls, and they sort of come along a bit later. Before them it was the Sycamores. Were big, and the Pritchards were big contractors back in the day.
And in terms of when you started yourself, just tell us about some of those things that you were doing back in the day then around, I suppose, the operations and how they were, I suppose, different to what they are now.
Yeah, back in those early days, the forestry was a lot different. Everything was more labour intensive. The people were probably a lot different than they are today, a lot harder. The culture was totally different around, the play hard type thing, drinking and that.
The work hard, play hard.
Yeah, yes. So, that was in those early days was like a big part of the forestry. We worked long days and hard days, but got a lot of fun out of it.
And tell us about the first machine that you can remember that you jumped on when you were starting off, I suppose, as just a young fella. Yeah, well, there was a couple of machines I can sort of remember, and one was a 528 winch skidder. Good old Cat there.
Yeah, yes. Good old Cat, yep. And then we were driving in the Clearfell. Once we went to the Clearfell, it was mostly Komatsu's D65s and D85s. Yes,
and I suppose you progressed through over a few years to when you started your own business. Can you remember the first machine that you owned?
Yeah, probably when I first started logging, it was a Komatsu bulldozer, and we had a wheel loader. I think it was a Volvo. What was it? I forget the model. And a bell. And we had a 324B cat loader. So, those were, it was all sort of manual work, and that's where we sort of started.
Oh, very good.
So Thomassen Logging sounds like it's got a very innovative way of doing things. Tell us about your operation and what your current fleet looks like.
Currently, we're based in Taupo, and we have we have offices there and workshop on that. We have around about 50 or 60 people working for us. We have an office where my wife and we have an office manager working. We have like a storeman, four full-time mechanics. So we do a lot of our own servicing and stuff like that. We sort of grew from those early days. I think I had a crew working in Lake Taupo Forest for New Zealand Forest Managers, and when it grew to 2 crews, we had a logging crew also working for New Zealand Forest Managers, but down in Wanganui. So the second crew came along, and things got a little bit more busy, and as the sort of the years evolved, we've gotten into being fully mechanised today.
And how many machines would you have in the fleet at the moment?
Now we have probably around about 50 odd, between 45 and 50 machines. So mainly skidders, and we have a couple of bulldozers. We have 3 tethers, a whole bunch of loaders, a whole bunch of falling machines, a whole bunch of processors. So sort of a mixture of mainly Caterpillar, Tiger Cat and Sumitomo.
And you're up to 9 gangs now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And keeping everyone busy in that space across that sort of central North Island region?
Yes, yeah.
Wow, it's a big operation. Your logging operations also sound like they're in very large, sustainable forests. So can you tell us a little bit about how this works for some of our listeners that have never seen a forestry operation?
A lot of the larger forests up in the North Island are owned by pension funds, and I think KiwiSaver have got money invested in those, and they're managed by forest management companies, and those are the ones we contract to. Right, okay. Yeah.
And I suppose that challenge in terms of you're working in the bush, it's pretty hard. It is hard work, but working in an environment like that, tell us about some of the challenges that you've had over the years, and I suppose at the same time some of the rewards that you have as part of that operation.
Probably one of the biggest challenges that we have, what's faced upon us, is people. Mm-hmm. Also the terrain and the weather become big parts of it. Having suitable configurations of machinery to suit those conditions. But there's still some great things you get out of it. Just seeing people grow and develop into better forestry people is sort of a big thing for me.
And you've had some people within your operation that have been with you for quite a few years?
Yeah. We've had people 20 plus years. So
we've been with you since those early days back in when you started the business back in the early 2000s.
Yes.
And I suppose we've asked this before in terms of some logging operations, but what's a commonly held belief about loggers or the industry that you disagree with, that most of the public might think about?
Probably the 2 biggest areas are health and safety, where once upon a time Mum and Dad would think it was a dangerous place for their little boy to go and work. Health and safety is one of our biggest things today in forestry, where I have a full-time person managing that for me, and we sort of pride ourselves on I've done probably 10 plus years since we've had a lost time injury, so it's we hold our heads high there. The environment, lately there's been a lot of bad press around the environment, especially so in the floods of the last couple of weeks.
Yes.
But the environment, to those who work in it, and we have some pretty strict guidelines that we follow, and once again, take a lot of pride in what we do and our jobs, and that's that sort of really.
every industry is also struggling to get good staff at the moment. It's a very common issue. Is this a problem for you? And if so, what are some of the things you're doing to attract and keep a great team?
Yeah, we're like anybody else. We sort of, always looking for good people. We have an ad usually on Facebook going for good people. We never take the first person off the ranks, and we have that interview process and do reference checks and whatever. On people, I think it's a big thing to really see what your people are like before you take them on. But, we attract a lot of good people too through new machinery, keep a fairly big stable of late model machines, which people are usually interested in. We also run a good training program within all our young people. They, do like their training. One of my big ones is encouraging people to take holidays during the year with their families. And there are, in some of the companies we work for, contract to, bonus schemes through work for doing a good job. So, that's another way of keeping people happy.
Yeah, I suppose that's a pretty innovative way to look after your people, and certainly just gives something else to attract them along to work for yourselves.
Yeah, we have a couple of schemes. One in one of the crews in Turangi, where all the contractors put in a bit of money, and the workers are all judged on their safety record and their safety gear. And at the end we do it quarterly. They do get little bonuses and prizes and stuff. And at the end of the year, we have a big clean-up, and the good boys win some, a couple of $1,000. And then in Timberlands, they do another scheme, a PIP scheme, and same sort of thing. The crew gets judged on performance, and we share that, with our employees. Do a good job, you get rewarded. So.
Yeah, and it's something that you can have as I suppose, not a competition, but it's something that, the different crews can aspire to if they see one of them, being really successful in that space, and, they want to do, what that crew's done, really successfully over those last 12 months. So, yeah, I think that's a great idea.
You've certainly got a really impressive safety record. I think no lost time injuries in 10 years is something to be really proud of, I'd say. Yeah. Hey, I saw some photos of a team get-together you had, and you got a health rep and a BNZ, Bank of New Zealand business manager in to talk to your team. That's a good idea. How did that go?
We have my operations manager, Ivan Turdich. He's sort of the big pusher down that road. Him and Aaron Dunster, sort of our trainer, and they do push very hard there. We did have a health professional come in and talk to our people around health and well-being. Probably her big topic, though, was the mental health of people, which is something that keeps on popping its head up. We had that, and then sort of had a second speaker, and it was sort of around financial health of employees, and our manager at the BNZ came along, and the boys really appreciated that and took a lot out of it, moving forward, even around loans and overdrafts and mortgages and all those things that people do today.
Yeah, and I suppose a lot of people, they tend to work week to week, and those sort of sessions make people think about the future a bit more and hopefully plan for the future a little bit more. So that's a fantastic thing that you've been able to do for your staff.
Yes.
We often hear about support from the likes of the dealers such as us and forestry companies that support forestry contractors. There must be a number of other companies that have helped you become successful. Tell us a little bit about those, and maybe some of those unsung heroes that have helped you along the way over the years.
probably the biggest group of people that have helped me through my journey are actually the people. Without good people, work becomes very hard. So I've always had the motto of, if a person likes you, they'll work for you. So, we do put a lot of emphasis on trying to, get people to like you and work for you. The machine dealerships distributors that we work with, they are another group of people that we work very closely to. They are the ones that keep the machines going, bring the new technology on board. Without also the next group are an accountant, Mark Blackburn and the BNZ. I've had a really good relationship with those two for since I started. It's something, there's no secrets hidden there anywhere. We all work together well.
Yeah, important that you have good relationships with them when you've got 50 or 60 machines going around.
Yeah,
the operation of your size, most definitely. And I suppose coming back to the forestry machine side of things, from your perspective, over all those years, you've been in the industry since the early 80s. Is there a model or piece of equipment that really sits close to your heart that you sort of think, oh yeah, that was a cool machine that we had, and it might not be in the operation anymore, but
yeah, probably from those very first days, chainsaws and labour was two big things, and I remember buying my first static delimber, and I think it was probably about $30,000 or $40,000, and it was such a lot of money in those days. And buying it was, is it a risk? And anyway, we've done it and just made life so easy. And so the next thing came along, with the harvesters, cutting down trees, and took a lot of danger out of our jobs. And the processes, all of a sudden you'd sort of struggle to do 300 to 400 tonne a day, and now with the processes and harvesters, just your job becomes a lot easy. But there's so many different machine models and stuff out there, and the technologies evolve so quickly. They sort of make work a lot easier today.
Yeah, that mechanisation's certainly been a pretty key element, hasn't it? And then it would also attract a few people in terms of young guys and girls as well to come into the industry if they know they're going to potentially do a bit of work and then get into a nice machine like that as well. I don't know whether you put them straight into the machine, but they probably need to do a few hard yards before then.
Yeah, young people today seem to adapt to the technology a lot better than some of us older people. Yeah.
They probably don't know how lucky they are having a radio and aircon and a nice comfortable cab to work in, day out, compared to what you had to back in the day.
Yeah.
So the forest industry has, as we've said, evolved a lot since you started, in particular over the last 10 to 15 years. From your perspective, what are the key changes you've seen over time?
Sort of, I suppose health and safety was a big change. Back in the early days, it was, if you go back to, the Cyclone Bowler and that, there wasn't a lot of training given back in those days. And we just sort of jumped into it, boots and all, and made do. So yeah, health and safety has changed a lot, and through to today where you're doing a lot more auditing and auditing of your jobs seems to make things a little bit safer. Mechanisation, that's changed things big time. From the old days of old machines and technology wasn't there till today. Everything is just so easy and so much more pleasant to work on. You sort of see around the new machines today, the technology that these new machines bring, the information they give you, is so good. Where some of our harvesters and that tell you how many tons you've done, and the machines, how fuel usage and fuel burn, and if the machine's playing up, it'll notify you. So things are just way easier today.
And you'd mentioned, I know you've spoken to myself previously about it. I suppose the relationship with the forest companies has probably changed a bit over that time as well.
Yeah, back in the sort of early days, it was working a lot harder. Today there seems to be more the partnership model out there, where you're both trying to get to the end line together, and that model seems to work fairly well for us both.
So, away from forestry, I know that you're heavily involved with the King Country Rugby Union. Tell us about that, and where's that interest come from?
Well, I suppose I'm just no different than any other New Zealand male. Rugby's sort of a big part of your life. King Country Rugby I've sort of been involved with for a number of years. Our union's got a lot of history there around, the old Meads family. And, our union now is growing. For me, I get a lot of kick out of seeing young people grow into players, and I want to better players, better people, and hopefully, we get some of our kids to become All Blacks. So it's a sort of a big thing for me. It sort of gets me going all the time with younger people doing well.
And you've got a couple of young guys, I suppose, in that King Country region that have done really well. Tell us about them.
Yeah, we've got our latest All Black is Josh Lord. His parents are farmers down in the Tamarui region. Josh, I think it was probably only 7 or 8 years ago, was playing for our under-13s and went off to New Plymouth Boys, and history sort of speaks for itself then. Got into the Chiefs and became an All Black. So last year we had Cortez Rarama from Tikawiti, and he made that New Zealand 15 that travelled overseas. So Cortez, another one in the Chiefs. We have another lad from Taupo that's he made his debut for the Chiefs last weekend against the Crusaders.
I don't think we need to talk any more about that, Ron.
We're not mentioning that, no.
George Dyer, another good Taupo boy. It's good to see those kids, give them some a pathway into a better game. So.
Yeah, it actually this as Tera Cat's really closely involved with the Crusaders with the partnership, and there's really close alignment with what the Super Rugby franchises like the Chiefs and the Crusaders do, bringing those young guys through and girls now as well, which is fantastic. And it gives them a pathway, and they can come out of these small towns around New Zealand. And you mentioned a couple there, and it's probably very similar to what we can do from a business perspective now as well, in terms of providing pathways for young guys and girls within our industry, which is fantastic. So
that's great to see. When you see the the companies, a lot of us rural people do support, and them putting a little bit back into what our communities do like too. So a big thanks to Tera Cat for being involved in in rugby, and part of my business, or my thoughts are that I want to look after these young players, and with your help, I think we'll get there. Yeah,
and you have that close alignment with the Chiefs, and How does that work from your role in terms of as being as chairman with King Country Rugby?
Yeah, the Chiefs, our role within the Chiefs is the 5 PUs. It's Taranaki, King Country, Waikato, Bay of Plenty, Counties, Manukau and Thames Valley all have an ownership of the Chiefs. It's about a 50% ownership. So, we're all, just I suppose like down here in Christchurch, we're Crusaders people, we're Chiefs people. And, we think a lot about our Chiefs team and support and push them along. So, that's our sort of our Chiefs.
Well, they certainly played pretty well on the weekend, and hopefully the Crusaders and the Chiefs might meet at the end of the year in the final.
Yeah, I'm sure Richard will be down for that.
So just changing tack a little bit, through your business you've had the chance also to travel to some awesome places around the world, visiting logging operations and industry shows. Tell us about some of the more interesting ones there.
Yeah, I've sort of travelled around the world quite a bit, looking at different shows. North America, the Pacific Northwest, Canada, BC. The big trees over there. It's like every logger. Seeing those great big trees is a bit of a buzz. Seeing how they handle those trees is a real eye-opener. The shows are a little bit like our New Zealand shows, a lot of machinery there. I've also been to Chile, and sort of Chile was a lot like New Zealand. The trees were very similar to New Zealand. People very similar to New Zealand. But basically around the world, when you look at these different countries, we're all loggers and bushmen, and we're all sort of painted with the same brush. So, it's some interesting sort of trips and some hard case people you meet in your travels, and people that have done well for themselves.
And they do things a bit differently up in North America, don't they?
Yeah. There's a lot of there's probably a little bit of stuff that's swept under the carpet. And I don't really want to comment too much more on that one, but they're a little different than we are. But still good people.
Yeah, at the end of the day, as you say, they're the bushmen and loggers, and there's alignment with them, I suppose, no matter where you go in the world, isn't there? Finally, Ron, thanks very much for your time again today. What's the future hold for you, and in terms of Thomassen Logging and your involvement in the industry moving forward? Yeah,
I'm still, I wouldn't say I'm young, but I'm still keen to get up in the morning and go to work. I've got a son. He's in his last year at Lincoln University. He's indicated he would like to come home and get involved in the family business. So, we're going to keep on pushing on, and we're sort of pushing towards in our business around tethering skidders this year.
And what's the reason around that? Is it just the terrain you're working in?
Yeah, the terrain we're working in. Productivity is a big thing, with skidders. We'll push along with that. Probably do a little wee bit more around the training of people. I think there's a little bit of room for that. But now I'm going to be around for a little wee bit longer and can't push me off my chair yet. So, I've enjoyed my life in the forest, and probably wouldn't change a lot, if I had to. So
it's certainly given you a lot of opportunities, hasn't it?
Yeah. I've come across a lot of really good people and people that I really respect. There's been a couple of people that have been a little bit rough around the edges, but that's in every business. But I'll just keep on doing it and for the near future. And it's one of my big kicks is to see people learn and just become better people, and it's better for society in general. So
Yeah, I'm sure that all that hard work that you're doing within your business is certainly creating better people and helping towards those people, contributing to some of those small towns and what have you that they're living out of that central North Island area, like you talked about before. So it's fantastic to hear.
Yeah, so thanks, Ron, for coming on Breaking Ground today. It's been great chatting with you. And thanks so much as well to you, our listeners. We hope that you've enjoyed today's conversation. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
And as always, we'd love to hear your feedback. Get in touch. You can send us a message on any of our social media channels. We're on Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. And please keep an eye out on our TerraCat Facebook page for details about the next episode of Breaking Ground. Thanks a lot and goodbye.
Thank you.